Newcastle 3, Leicester 0. Was the Newcastle win really ever in doubt going into this game? Probably not. Leicester haven't scored a Premier League goal since they played Tottenham on January 26th. But let's talk about the game. I thought Livramento was excellent. I think Jacob Murphy is proving yet again why he is one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. But it was a game where I thought after about 15 minutes when it was 2-0 up, oh, this could be a 7-8-0. I remember when you beat Sheffield United 8-0 last season. And then I sort of feel like you went 3-0 up and then you're like, nah, let's rest. Let's save ourselves for Man United. Because that second half was, that's the second half. It was sending me to sleep. It was a pretty boring second half. It wasn't the best game of football I've watched. It was very much like Leicester were crap. Newcastle were good. Newcastle were like, all right, we'll turn it on the first half an hour, go 3-0 up, save our energy for Man United. And as a Man United fan, I don't like that because I know at St James's Park, the Newcastle in the first 14 minutes is going to be playing against us for 90 minutes, not the Newcastle in the second half today because you always save your energy for Man United and it's really annoying. So let's review the game and I'm going to give you my thoughts. But this is 4 wins in a row for Newcastle. They are now 5th with a game in hand. Chelsea don't look the most convincing. Newcastle have Champions League football in their hands at the moment, right now. Although they do have a thin squad, and I do think if you get Champions League, you're definitely going to have to invest to improve the squad depth. So these are my thoughts on the game. Newcastle on fire at the start of the first half, 2 early goals, you got the job done and you just went back a few gears. I think the second half you weren't great, even the subs, the quality went down. Wilson just looks dumb. Miley was probably struggling a little bit to pass the ball, but I think that just the tempo around him was wrong. Longstaff was struggling. You clearly, I felt like you were 3-0 up. You were resting. I think the players are thinking, let's not get injured. We've got big games ahead. This is the 3-point seal. Champions League, tougher games. Man United, Crystal Palace, tougher games. I feel like that was Newcastle's mentality because the second half was a snooze fest. I was thinking, could this be an 8-0 Sheffield United type win? But it was just a bit of a Newcastle took their foot off the gas. And honestly, I was falling asleep a little bit in the second half. But the first half, you were very good. We had Livramento making a lot of runs. Harvey Barnes had a bright first half. Murphy's there to score the goals. But one thing I've noticed with Newcastle this season was when you played us at Old Trafford, you were unbelievable the first half. You went 2-0 up. We got absolutely cooked by you. But then the second half, even though you still won the game, you dropped off a bit. Even Nottingham Forest, I think you went, was it 3-4 up versus Nottingham Forest? And then it was 4-3 or something. You do seem to do that thing where you can start really well and then you can drop off a little bit. Maybe that's something Newcastle need to work with. But you got the win. You were 3 goals up. You were able to rotate, bring Osula on for a little bit, take Isak off, rest him. For me, I think that's a perfect day at the office for Newcastle. It wasn't the most entertaining game, wasn't the best game. Leicester are just rubbish. The promoted teams are just rubbish. But the way I look at it, because I'm a Man United fan, is Newcastle didn't even try. It felt like they just got the win. It was easy for them, second nature. They could take Isak off. He's going to get a nice 4 weeks rest. The whole team's going to get 4 weeks rest, where we have to play Real Sociedad on Thursday away. We probably don't have De Ligt available, and he's probably been our best centre-back this season, although Yori these last few games has been really good. Mayno probably still a doubt because he's been out the last 8 weeks. Mason Mount isn't fit enough to start. Luke Shaw is on his way back, but again, not ready to start. Leach is out. Ahmad's out. I'm a bit worried because Newcastle have a lot to play for. We don't. I think with United, in terms of Man United, we're not actually as bad as we were. We just can't score goals. And if you defend well against us, you're basically going to win the game because we can't score at the moment. So I'm a bit worried to play Newcastle. I can't lie because we're not that different to Leicester sometimes. But we are better than Leicester. Trust me, we're a lot better than Leicester. Thank God. But a bit boring to watch at times. So let's talk about the game. So 4 wins in a row for Newcastle. So they go into 5th with a game in hand. To win the game, to get the 3 points, and to not at their best. It was like you were good, and then in the second half, you just were 3-0 up. You were playing like you were 3-0 up, and you knew you had bigger and more important games to go. I think Leicester are just rubbish. I can't lie. Southampton are atrocious, 10 points, but Leicester so bad. Ipswich have given teams a game, but the difference between the Championship and the Premier League is really showing. To stay up is going to be a big challenge. I think Newcastle look very much on track for European football. With Chelsea looking shaky, I think UC has a strong possibility. I think you also have the easier fixture list. I think you'll definitely get Europa League, but I think Champions League, 5th place should get it. I think you will get top 5. I think I predicted you 5th at the beginning of the season. Because I said without Europe, I reckon you can do it. But I will say, next season when you're in Europe, you're going to have to improve squad depth because you can't be taking Bruno Guimaraes off or Tonali off and bringing on Longstaff because there's a big difference between a Bruno Guimaraes and a Tonali and a Longstaff. But as things stand, you've got the game in hand. You go on to 56 points, which is 1 point behind Nottingham Forest with easier fixtures. Manchester City, I mean, they came to Old Trafford and we were the better side at Old Trafford, not Man City. They're not great despite the money they spent. Villa are on a good run, I will tell you that. But Chelsea haven't looked particularly convincing. They've had a lot of Southamptons and Leicesters recently, hence why there's a few more green results there. I think it's very much there for the taking Champions League football for Newcastle, because Man United and Palace and Villa are 3 difficult games, but then you've got Ipswich, and then you've got Brighton, which you should beat them both. And then Chelsea on the 10th of May could be a huge game. Arsenal will have nothing to play for by the 18th of May because the Premier League will already be given to Liverpool. And then Everton on the final week, who have looked better, but again, they won't have much to play for. So I feel like you are going to get Champions League. But even if you don't get Champions League, I think Europa League's really good. I'm not just saying that because Man United are in the Europa League, but I think sometimes if you feel you're not quite ready to really push in the Champions League, Europa League's a good one, because I think you'd win the Europa League, whereas Champions League, you can't say Newcastle win the Champions League, even if you sign Mbappe or something. So I think, yeah, you could get Champions League, but if you don't, you'll get Europa, which is still really good competition to be in. So this is my thoughts on Newcastle. I feel like after the subs, you lost control, but also I don't think you came out great in the second half either. But I felt like there's definitely, the depth needs improving. When you being in Europe next season, you're going to have to invest. You know, for me, you need an Mbeumo type person because he can play right wing and striker, so he can back up to Isak, but also play right wing. And then if he plays striker because something happens to Isak, Murphy can play right wing, and Murphy's shown he's more than capable. I think you need 1 to 2 attacking reinforcements. I think you need a top centre back like a Hoyson or a Gay, the long-term replacement for Shah. Maybe 2 centre backs because Botman has had a lot of issues with injury. I know Byrne is good, I know Shah is good, I know Botman is good, but it's just the depth, the injuries there, because Botman's not had much luck. I think you need a fullback just for depth. I think Livramento is great at left back, but Trippier's aging. You definitely need another fullback that could probably play both left and right back for depth behind Livramento and Lewis Hall as the first 2. I think, you know, Willock's probably going to leave, so another midfielder for depth. You lost Minter, you lost Elliot Anderson. I think that's what you need. And maybe a goalkeeper that can play out from the back is something that looks like Eddie Howe wants. But I think that's what I look at Newcastle and what they will have to do, because I think you've got a good team. I think you've got some great players. But I think if you get back in Europe, which you will actually, because you won the Carabao, so you're at least in the Conference League, you're just going to need a bit more depth, to be honest. My standout player was Tino Livramento. I think he's looked better at left back. He's defensively solid, but he's really carrying the ball well, getting forward. He gets up and down those flanks so well, and he does so well in his duels, whether it's the 1v1 attacking duels or the 1v1 defensive duels. He seems to do so well in his duels. You know, he didn't just get the assist today, but it was the drive, the composure. I felt that he was better than Murphy today in terms of his all-round impact on the game. I thought it was really good. I thought Harvey Barnes had a good first half. Second half was a bit dead. But yeah, I thought, you know, him getting the goal was deserved, because I think he's filled in well for Gordon, who's been a big miss with his suspension. And I think he's shown that, you know, as an option off the bench next season, he's going to be good. We've obviously seen him come off the bench and score goals this season, but it's definitely a good option to have for depth. Jacob Murphy could arguably be man of the match as well. 16 goal contributions this season. Only Salah and Palmer have more non-striker goal contributions since December. You know, I think with Jacob Murphy, he's underrated in the sense of he's not a flashy winger that's going to cut in and score. He'll look to pass. He's one of the most selfless, hardworking players there. He's always looking for that ball to ease at. But he can score, he can assist, he works incredibly hard, he presses incredibly hard. He's not the flashiest name, but he works so hard, and the improvement in his game. And I think he's a player that every squad would love, every manager would love, every team would love. You know, he might not be your starting right winger next season, but he's that squad player that everybody will love, because when you need him, he's there. He's going to do a job. He works hard. He does everything for the team. He doesn't complain. I feel like he's just one of those guys, a top professional. And as you can see here, 8 goals and 10 assists. You know, he's having a very, very underrated season. I think he doesn't get enough flowers. Everyone talks about Isak and Gordon, but I think Murphy's been just as good this season. You know, he really is doing well, isn't he? And then I think Eddie Howe deserves a bit of credit. You know, what he's done with players like Murphy, Joe Linton, and others from the relegation squad that he took over. You know, he took over a team that was in the relegation zone, and you know, he's managed to get really good results with this side, with Joel Linton coming a key player, with Murphy coming a key player, and he's won Newcastle's first domestic trophy in 70 years. He deserves a lot of credit for that. You know, he's getting the best out of so many players, I think, and I just think he needs backing. He hasn't had a new signing really the last 18 months, because I'm not really counting Lloyd Kelly and Asula as new signings. You know, someone that's actually been brought for a little bit of a fee that's going to walk into that first team. He hasn't had that in 18 months. So he deserves a lot more backing, Eddie Howe, and I think he will get the backing. I think you're probably in a much better position with PSR now. But I thought Nick Pope had a better game. I think Wilson probably looks done. I think the promoted teams are just shocking, to be honest. I think this is on another day. This could have been a 6-7-0 game. I think if it's the start of the season, you've got loads of energy. Maybe that's a 6-7-0 game. But I do think, and this is what worries me as a United fan, that Newcastle are just saving their energy for United. I'm a bit worried about that game. I think you're going to beat us, to be fair, especially at St James's Park. But you like to show up against us, don't you? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.